Throughout the ages, humankind has always been fascinated by space. On a clear night sky, one can perceive the beauty of the stars. We gave stars their names and dreamed to travel among them. Modern movies depict those dreams through the genre of science fiction. They display a world in which humanity leaves Earth, colonizes different planets, and travels between solar systems. Truth remains that for the average person of the 21st century, the chance to see the Earth from outer space is slim to none. Every space expedition is still a national or even global endeavor. Humankind can send satellites into space or even land on the moon. But what is the capability of a few humans? Can one only participate in rocket science with a country-level budget? Or can like-minded people bond together to chase after the seemingly impossible dream of their self-built rocket? To better understand the intricacies of this question, we need to look at the origins of rocket science. Even something as complex as rocket science had to start somewhere. To depict one part of the evolution of space travel, we take a closer look at the history of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or short JPL. This organization, under the jurisdiction of NASA, made the launch of the first American satellite possible, and still influences American space travel to this day. In the 1930s, similar to how we perceive living on other planets today, the entirety of space travel was considered impossible and nothing more than science fiction. Flying to the moon resembled nothing but a foolish dream. Even leading institutes in aerodynamics didn't consider investing time and money into advancing technologies necessary for space travel. Among those institutes stood the Graduate Aerospace Laboratories of the California Institute of Technology, or short GALCIT. Theodor von Karman, director of the Aeronautical Laboratory at GALCIT, was open to, at that time, more exotic ideas and concepts. Under his guidance, a small team of students conducted experiments regarding aerodynamics and propellants. Karman's position as a scientific advisor for the US military helped to promote the group's work to military officials. The military's main interest was in a jet-assisted takeoff for heavy propeller planes. In 1939, under the leadership of Frank Malina, a group of rocket enthusiasts from the Pasadena area gathered. With the new funding from the military, the group continued their experiments off-campus. The tests resumed on a new property and a nearby military base. While World War II was ongoing, the group achieved the jet-assisted takeoff and thus justified its presence, increasing funding. In 1943, the team was tasked with the analysis of the German V-2 program. The German V-2, a ballistic missile, was used to bombard England. The group's focus was understanding, duplication, and improvement of those weapons. Around the same time was the first in-name mention of the JPL. Through the development of experimental missiles for the US Army, they turned their research to other fields as well. Those laid the groundwork for spaceflight, secure communication, spacecraft navigation and control, and planetary exploration. With those new technologies, Private A, an 8-feet-long, fin-stabilized rocket, reached 11 miles range. The team reached a size of 300 members in 1945. A missile launched in White Sands, New Mexico, surpassed 40 miles while the group monitored via radio and radar equipment. The next project revolved around the control of the missile, which succeeded in May 1947 with a corporal that had a two-way radio system, radar, and primitive computers as a ground station. The race to space between Russia and the US opened an opportunity for JPL. After a launchpad explosion at the Navy's Vanguard project in December 1957, the JPL was tasked with the launch of a satellite into outer space.
Minutes click past relentlessly. The beams of powerful searchlights light up the missile, truly the star of one of the greatest suspense dramas of our time. the drama approaches the final act, the Army's first attempt to fire a man-made moon into orbit. Time, late evening, Friday, January 31st, 1958, in a blockhouse at Kapitel.
On the 31st of January 1958, Explorer 1 reached space, went beyond the Russian satellite Sputnik, and thus became the first successful American satellite.
One, fire command, fire command. Fire command.
With this achievement, the US government transferred the JPL from Army jurisdiction to the new civilian space agency NASA. The JPL evolved from a small group of enthusiast rocket scientists to a company supporting the space travel of a world-renowned organization. The development of an enormous rocket might still be only possible with the backing of a country or a big company. But the dream of a self-filled rocket is possible on smaller scale. Let's take a look at the development of a model rocket with a landing system. BPS Space is a YouTube channel that was started by one person back in 2015. He documented his development of a propulsively landed model rocket for 7 years. Although he described it as fulfilling to work on a project like this, the time, dedication and hard work he had to put in was quite a lot. Not every day was a good day, and a lot of bad days had consequences.
There are a couple of things that I do want to talk about. One of them is burnout.
Over time, he had to take multiple breaks because of the high stress he put himself under, and the burnout that originated from overwork and continued failure.
At least in my experience, about why burnout happens. I've been able to go through times of like a full month where I'm working like 12 to 16 hours a day, just like kind of an unhealthy amount, and I don't experience burnout. And then I've, in weeks like these where it's just like 4 days of failure after failure, I feel burned out now. I feel really burned out. It's time to take a break and just sort of recalibrate and get back to thinking about why I like doing these things.
At the end of it all, he persevered and could push through those hardships. The model rocket succeeding in the landing got built from what was available to him. Machined aluminium was employed for structural integral parts, while utilizing 3D printed PLA parts and hardware store goods for the remaining structure. For thrust vector control, he used servo motors that were driven by his self-built flight computer. To counter any high-speed change in roll and resulting higher load on these motors, he employed the use of a reaction wheel that improved roll stability. Throttle control was handled by blocking the exhaust with machined ceramic pieces, and for the landing legs, carbon fiber rods were used. To analyze the failures that occurred throughout development, he collected as much data as possible from every test flight. After identifying a pattern, he adapted the design and repeated the test until it worked. And after 7 years of development, on the 5th flight of Scout F, he succeeded with the landing. During development and after the successful landing, he continues to help other people get easier access to the world of rocket science. Since he was the only person working on it, the development was time and cost intense, and he had to shoulder it all himself. If you are not working alone but can gather a group of enthusiasts, the possible range for your project also increases. Mike Hughes, also known as Mad Mike, was a professional stunt driver, flat Earth theorist, and self-taught rocket scientist. Mad Mike built a steam-powered rocket and launchpad. He cooperated with Waldo Stakes, a fellow rocket enthusiast. In 2018, he launched himself 1,872 feet into the air using a rocket, Hughes suffered severe injuries from the launch, but continued to push forward. 2019 should have been the second launch, but there was a technical difficulty with a faulty water heater. In 2020, a new Science Channel series called Homemade Astronauts, owned by Discovery, followed Mad Mike in what would become his last launch. The purpose of the series was the documentation of hobby rocket building. On the 22nd of February near Barstow, California, Mike Hughes launched himself to push for the 5,000 feet mark. On the descent, the parachute deployed prematurely and attached itself during liftoff. He crashed with full force into the ground, only a few hundred meters from where he launched. Mike Hughes died at the age of 64. Regarding his motivation, he revealed that although he wanted to see whether the Earth was flat or round, his focus was on the propagation of hobby rocket science and his desire for the next most dangerous thing. After Mike's huge death, his PR manager, Mr. Schuster, also said he wanted to be a hero. That's what drove him.
Call me an idiot. Yeah, but all the time people contact him and says, Michael, you may be the guy who can change the world. You know what I mean? You may be.
He was not the only one pushing a manned rocket flight. Copenhagen Suborbitals is a crowdfunded company that builds rockets in their workshop in Copenhagen, Denmark. The rockets get launched from a ship in the Baltic Sea. All work is done by unpaid volunteers with the goal to prove that it's possible to get into space on an amateur rocket.
Why? Because it's a crazy and incredible idea. Because for amateurs, space is the final frontier.
Although they are still far away from actually going into outer space, unmanned rocket flight already achieved this goal, beating the previous world record in highest altitude rocket launch held by the GoFast 204 that reached 72 miles with a top speed of 3,420 miles per hour. The GoFast 2014 reached 73.1 miles and hit a top speed of 3,580 miles per hour. With this, the GoFast 2014 broke multiple records. World record for highest altitude rocket launch, world record for fastest speed rocket launch, first picture taken from space on board an amateur rocket, and second amateur rocket in history to reach space. The average person of the 21st century may not yet be able to fly into outer space, but with the continued motivation and contribution in hobby rocket science, at least a glimpse may be possible. Without a doubt, it remains a financial and timely endeavor, but that won't stop small groups of enthusiasts from gathering and continuously pushing the unthinkable. Humankind stays as captivated by space as ever, but what changes is that when we gaze into the night sky, we will see satellites sparkling among the stars. In newspapers and on the internet, new pictures of space expeditions will astonish us, and while we thrive for the second moon expedition and dream of Mars colonies, maybe one day science fiction will once again become reality just for us to create stories to dream again.